The Welsh Wire, where talent and business connect in West Michigan. The Welsh Wire features moderator Mike Rogers and professional recruiting expert Sherry Welsh in this podcast. Listen in as leaders from a wide array of small to mid-sized West Michigan companies weigh in and share their experiences and insights on a variety of business topics, including employee retention challenges and recruitment success stories.
Hello, everybody. It's Mike Rogers. Welcome to the Welsh Wire, sponsored by the Family Business Alliance and featuring Sherry Welsh.
Today, we're here with Rob Elliott, who's a partner in Pondera Leadership Consulting in Grand Rapids. Rob, welcome to the Welsh Wire.
Thanks, Sherry. Good morning.
Tell us a little bit about Pondera, who you are, how you got started in the business.
Yeah. We're a leadership consulting company that is located here in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Three things that we do day in and day out. One is we do one-on-one coaching with leaders. Two, we work with leadership teams to help teams of people learn to work together more effectively. Integral to our coaching and our team effectiveness work, we have our own proprietary personality assessment that most of our clients involve us in their hiring process, that we help people assess talent, figure out is the person a good fit for the role, how well they're going to work with their hiring manager, how well they're going to assimilate into the team. My partner, Joe Day, and I started the firm 13 years ago. We're starting April 1. We'll be starting our 14th year in business together here in West Michigan.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And we have 11 of us in the firm. There are 5 other people that do the consulting work that Joe and I do, and then we have 4 staff that support us in our engagements with our clients.
Wonderful. A nice team. And you serve a lot of different industries, different disciplines and backgrounds, and you do work across the country. Is that true?
Correct. Our focus is leadership, the majority of our clients tend to be small, privately held businesses.
Sure.
The thing that we've experienced is that generally small, privately held businesses invest in people on a consistent basis. The thing that we've often encountered with large publicly traded companies is they want to wait to know that they make their year financially, and then they want to start investing in people.
Sure.
And so a lot of times they want to cram those things in the fourth quarter of the year, which isn't the best with how people learn and change and adapt. And so we have found that, privately held companies tend to do work with people on a more consistent basis. And so that's been our focus.
Right. Well, and I would bet, too, with the services that you provide, it probably helps companies where they don't have a big OD department or a big HR department and people who can focus on that full time, like maybe a Fortune 500 company could. They have a distinct need for that leadership development.
Yeah, well said. And the thing that we find is that we do work with some really large organizations and some publicly traded companies, but they're pretty enlightened HR people that realize that over time their people get too close to the situation and they value having an outside perspective come in and help them.
That's helpful. Yeah, really, in any business, that's helpful. Yeah. And you've developed a really interesting program, Discovering Your Authentic Leadership. And you want to share an overview with us today, Rob? Can you tell us a little bit about how that works and what that's about?
That would be great. One of the things we believe is we can't lead other people until we can successfully lead ourselves. So I've got to have my own house in order before I can expect people to want to follow me. We believe that leadership is a lifelong process. It's a journey. It's not a destination. That it's something that we're always becoming leaders. We never arrive. And, the thing that we want to work at over time is making it comfortable for the people around us to continually give us feedback. In my business relationships, perhaps the person who has helped me most to grow as a person and as a leader is a gentleman by the name of Greg Kerr, who supports me at Pondera and all my client engagements. And, Greg is 30 years younger than I am, and yet I've never had anybody in my life that has been as direct with me about things about me that irritate him, about suggestions that he has about how I can improve my effectiveness as a consultant, how I can improve my effectiveness as a leader, how I can improve my just personal productivity in the office. However, he would tell you that, number one, I make it safe for him to give me that feedback. And number two, that he actually sees me make changes as a result of me getting that feedback, and so he keeps bringing it, and I really value that, because we've got to be open to learning from the people around us. So
absolutely, and it's interesting too that you note that he's 30 years younger than you. So I think there's a tendency to think, the wisdom and the learning, the knowledge transfer comes from those who are older and wiser and have had more life experience. But you're saying, I'm learning an awful lot, and I'm developing an awful lot from somebody who's 30 years my junior, but gives it to me straight and is unafraid to do that.
Yeah. Well, I love the energy of young people. I love their curiosity.
Yeah.
We always want to have interns. We always want to have young people around our firm, because they bring so much juice to the business, and
you bet.
Really provide opportunities for us to get better from that standpoint. The notion of discovering your authentic leadership, one of the things that I subscribe to is a daily email that I get from a gentleman called Brian Johnson, and it's called Optimizer.
Okay.
And every day, Brian is a voracious reader. I'm not. Brian is. And every day, Brian summarizes for his readers and listeners a book that he has read and some of the key nuggets from that book. And within the last year, one of the things that Brian shared was a story about a group of monks in the Far East that their town was being invaded. And in the center of the town, they had this golden statue. It was a Buddha that was made of solid gold. And they were worried about the enemy coming in and destroying the statue. And so what they did is they covered the statue with mud and brush and things like that, and so that no one would recognize it. And sure enough, they were invaded. The community was taken over, and the monks were driven out and never came back. Well, many years later, people started to inhabit the region again. And one day, somebody noticed that there was this break in this mud that was on this thing. And the people in the new town never knew what it was. And they started chipping away at it. And lo and behold, that they found here was this solid gold statue of a Buddha. Wow. And, the analogy here is that, we believe when it comes to discovering our authentic leadership is that leader already exists within each one of us. But what happens over the course of our lives is we get all the shoulds. You should do this, you should do that. And what happens for so many of us is that we end up putting on these false masks. We get out of bed in the morning and we have this belief that we have to behave a certain way. And then we start to play that role. It's like I get up in the morning, I put my uniform on, and then we
become who others expect
exactly.
that we should be, who we are. Right. Yes.
And candidly, when we behave that way, people don't trust us. So we're not authentic. They sense that there's something else going on. And, the other thing that we find in our work is that 9 times out of 10, when clients ask us to try to help them with someone who's not performing well, almost always it's because the person isn't in the right job. There's not alignment between who they are and what they do. And in discovering your authentic leadership, we take our clients through a process to help them start to really look deeply at who they really are. And so people get to show up at work and just be themselves. They just express their God-given talents. They're not always working outside of themselves.
Right. Right. Good. So that's kind of step 1 in the process, right?
We have a Latin phrase that's on our website. It's on several walls in our office. It's called the animus tibiesi, which is the courage to be you.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that we try to help people become courageous to really take a look at themselves.
So courage is at the center of that.
Courage is definitely at the center.
Dig deep, find it, and be who you are, not what's been thrust upon you by others or suggested or asked for you to be from others. Yeah. Be yourself and be courageous in that.
And it takes a lot of courage, because a lot of times in life, people around us don't want us to change.
Oh, sure. For a variety of reasons,
they
right?
Like the significance of our title. They like our income. There's just a variety of things
right.
that they don't want us to change because it's going to negatively impact them. So it takes tremendous courage for people to take a look at themselves. But once they do, then we can start to help them, with 2 other things as a part of discovering your authentic leadership. And that is that we believe at the end of the day, leadership comes down to 2 things. Mm-hmm. One is self-awareness, and the other is selfless service to other people.
Tell us more about that.
Yeah, the self-awareness is that we believe as a leader, to successfully lead other people, you need to first of all be aware of your strengths, of your gifts, of the things that you do exceptionally well. And ideally, you want to set yourself up for success, that you spend most of your time focusing on the things that you do exceptionally well. We also think that people need to be aware of their limitations. What are the things about me that get in the way, that create noise, create interference, create problems in my work? And rather than try to get better at those things, we think you should surround yourself with people who simply do those things really well and let them do those things for you. But the third piece of the self-awareness is that we have to become aware of our blind spots. We have to be open to learning about aspects of our personality that really create problems for us with other people that we're unaware of. And a couple of tools that we utilize to help people with self-awareness is one, I mentioned earlier, our proprietary personality assessment. It's a very comprehensive assessment. We give you feedback on 27 scales of personality. And we kind of hold up the mirror for people to allow people to see themselves more objectively. And then the other thing we do is we do 360 feedback, where we actually have our clients identify people in their lives that they would like us to interview professionally. And then we go in and we find out from other people how people see our client, and then we allow our client to hear that feedback about how people view them. And through the combination of our assessment and the 360 feedback, we're really able to give people a clearer picture into themselves from that perspective.
Very interesting. I bet that's very enlightening for people to be able to come to that place and see how others see them differently than maybe where they see themselves.
Absolutely. And then the selfless service to other people concept is, you and I were visiting before we went on the air about our ties back to Oscoda, Michigan.
Yes.
Well, back in 1985, I came back to the county area as the superintendent of the schools for the county, and decided to do a leadership seminar for all of the students in the 4 local high schools that were in leadership roles. And I said to my father, I wanted to bring in a speaker, but I didn't have a lot of funds to be able to do that. And I was wondering if he might be able to help me identify someone. So my dad was able to get Earl O'Laughlin, who was one of my father's high school classmates. And Earl at the time was a 4-star general, and he was in charge of Wright-Patterson Air Force Base down at Dayton, Ohio.
Oh, yeah. Nice.
So Earl comes in, this is 1985, comes into the gymnasium in Taos High School. And I've got all the students that are sitting in the bleachers, and I've got Earl with a overhead projector. We didn't have computers and PowerPoint back then.
Back in the day.
And, Earl had a screen up, and he threw a transparency on that showed the org chart for Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And Earl had 5,000 men and women in his command. And so he's explaining to these kids about his organization, and, they were all oohing and on, and they were just really amazed that they were with this guy that had that kind of authority. And then what Earl did is he took the org chart and he flipped it upside down. And he said to the kids, the reality is, I don't do anything at the air base that makes a difference. It's these 5,000 people that do all the work. And my job as a leader is to remove obstacles and to provide resources so that they can do their jobs. So he said, I'm not at the top of the chart. I'm at the bottom of the chart.
Oh, that's great.
He said, I'm here to lift everybody else in the organization up. And Earl O'Laughlin was the one that introduced me to the concept of selfless service to other people. About, he was a very powerful person, a person who's in the military that understood that it wasn't about him, it was about his people.
Right. And true servant leadership.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's one of those things that we try to help our clients really discover about themselves and about their perception of leadership.
Right. That's great. And I bet those students in that room were amazed to see what leadership really means. It's a great lesson he was able to bring to them back in the day. And for all of us, really, too. So you've got, you can talk a little bit more with us about some of the key influencers in your leadership.
In the workshop, we do a half-day workshop for our clients on discovering your authentic leadership. And one of the exercises we take people through is to go through and think back, who are some of those key influencers that have shaped your perception of leadership and who you are today as a person.
Why is that important to know who those influencers are
for a couple
your
of reasons.
leadership?
Yeah, for a couple of reasons. One is that it really allows us to be reflective about what's most important to us and what are those lessons, those values that we've developed as leaders, that we're carrying forward. That's one thing. The second thing is that we think that stories are the most powerful way for any of us to teach, to influence other people.
True.
And so when I'm a leader, if I know my stories, if I know why I am the way I am and who I've learned from what, and then if I'm comfortable sharing those stories with other people, it really allows people to learn, to get comfortable, and to be much more interested in following my leadership when they understand why I am the way I am and why I believe so strongly about those things.
Makes a lot of sense.
From that perspective.
Yeah.
So, one of my stories that's significant for me is I coached high school lacrosse at East Grand Rapids for a long time. And one year at the end of the season, I had one of my fellow coaches gave me a book at the end of the season. It was called The Diary of a Desperate Man by Walter Heinrichsen. And I looked at my fellow coach, and his name was Jeff Gusky, and I said, Gusky, do you think I'm a desperate man? Why are you giving me this book?
What is this?
Yeah. And he said, right, Rob, I think that you're going to find something in that book that will resonate with you. And when you do, I think you're going to want to talk to me about it. And I'm going to indulge me. I'm going to read the quote. What I read was, for the most part, men love competition and hate confrontation. A man may love a hard game of tennis, but hate firing a problematic employee, choosing instead to send a subordinate into the job for him. You confront because you seek to help the one being confronted. Confrontation is one of the highest expressions of love. And it goes on, when done in love and compassion, confrontation is one of the kindest things you can do for another person. A refusal to confront when needed is one of the most selfish things you can do. Confrontation is not criticizing another. It's helping that person so that he will not be further hurt by his behavior.
Oh, that's great.
Now, the reason that Jeff gave me that is that in our relationship as coaches, I was the head coach, Jeff was one of my assistants. I was the good cop, Jeff was a bad cop.
Oh.
I was the guy that talked to kids and parents about all the positives, all the good things going on. I was the cheerleader. I was the encourager. And Jeff was the guy that talked real with people. And so I knew that's why he wanted me to see that, because he knew that I was not manning up. I was not having.
He was calling you out on that.
But he did so in a very effective way.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And what he said to me is, I don't need you, Elliott, to be like me, but I at least need you to lean in once in a while and have some of those difficult conversations with me. And that was a significant influence in my life, because you can't change your behavior until you change your thinking.
Right.
And what Jeff helped me to do is he helped me change my thinking about conflict so I could begin to start to change my behavior.
Oh, that's a huge paradigm shift, isn't it?
Absolutely.
I mean, for you at that moment in your life, and I think for probably some of our listeners too, to look at confrontation so differently. Yeah. It's a great story.
Absolutely.
Really great story. You've got another one you wanted to share a little bit about too.
Real quick, when as I shared with you earlier, I started my career as a high school teacher.
Yeah.
I taught accounting and business law and general business. And one of my mentor teachers that taught me about the theory of teaching was a woman by the name of Madeline Hunter. And Madeline Hunter had a program called ITIP, Instructional Theory into Practice. And one of the things that I learned from Madeline Hunter one day said to me when she was teaching a class, she said, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. But she said, you can salt its oats so it's thirsty and it wants to drink.
Oh, nice.
And she said, that's what great teachers do. They salt people's oats to get them thirsty so they want to learn.
Nice.
And I believe that that's what great leaders do.
Yep.
Great leaders create the conditions for people to want to learn, for people to want to act. And we know in our work as leadership coaches, I can't help another person until they're ready. But the thing that I can do is I have tools in my toolbox that can help increase the probability of people getting ready to want to change. As an example, a personality assessment is one of those things that helps people get ready because it allows them to start to take a look at themselves. 360 feedback is one of the other tools. So we're helping them with self-awareness, but we're also leading them, down the path to get ready to have the courage to take a look at yourself.
Absolutely.
And so Madeline Hunter was a significant mentor of mine in a variety of ways, but I'll never forget the fact that you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink, but you can salt its oats so it's thirsty and it wants to drink. And Madeline Hunter was an exceptional mentor for me from that perspective.
Right. That is a great example that she gave you there. So you've given us a lot to unpack here in thinking about how to discover your authentic leadership. You've talked a little bit about the need for courage and to really dig deep and want to find out what it is that makes you who you are and what you're all about. You've talked about self-awareness and how to discover that your strengths, your limitations, blind spots. You've also shared about selfless service, great example with talking about Earl O'Loughlin and how to sort of invert that org chart and recognize that, what you're lifting everybody else up. And then you also left us with a little bit of a story about confrontation and how important that can be to not only helping yourself, but helping others become who they need to be. What are the key components that you think we really need to to hone in on if we want to know who we are and discover authentic leadership? What are the main things that you want to leave?
Well,
us
first
with
of all,
today,
I think
Rob?
people need to figure out how to get you in their life, because I'm really impressed with how quickly you picked up on the things that I talked about, and you're hearing all this, real time with me. So really well done. Great job of summarizing, Sherry. And the thing that I would come back to is, number one, we're really respectful about the courage piece. Not everybody is ready at the same time. That's okay. I often tell clients, you're not ready yet. That's all right. When you are ready, let me know, and we'd love to be able to help you through this process. And I mean that very, very sincerely.
That's a good point.
It takes courage for people to really want to take a look at themselves and do this work, because it's heavy lifting. It is a process. It's not an event. It's something that unfolds. And you've got to be able to work with someone who you trust. Trust is a key thing in this process. And you've got to be really willing to lean in and take a look at yourself, get to know yourself well, and start to learn about how you're impacting, people around you.
Right. That's great. Thank you for sharing that with us today. So I know you mentioned you've got a half-day program that you do with clients that really delves into this process. And we want to be able to connect you and connect our listeners to get more information on that, or to do follow-up questions with you if they want to know about how to discover their authentic leadership. So what's the best way to reach you, Rob, if they want to get to you?
Easiest way is to go to our website, PonderaAdvisors.com, or our office number is 616-956-3410, and they can ask for Greg, and Greg will hook them up.
Terrific. Well, Rob Elliott, Pondera Leadership Consulting, thank you for being our guest today on the Welsh Wire, our program produced in conjunction with our friends at the Family Business Alliance.
Thanks, Sherry.
Thank you for listening to the Welsh Wire. We hope you'll join us for the next episode. For more information, visit welshandassociates.net.